Hey everybody, I'm Dave Swartz, and welcome to yet another edition of Dose of Dave Live here on Saturday morning-ish. So today we're talking about comparison and how comparison can be a dastardly thief of joy. So this week I've been encountering this issue, this time and again issue for myself with comparing myself to other people, specifically comparing my art to other art, other artists. Ever since I can remember, ever since I was a little old baby artist, I was always comparing myself to other artists. And I think that my earliest memory of that was when I was in, I think like second or third grade, and we had to make these like little books, little stories. So you could find like these little pre-made little books that were kids. You make a little story for them, that kind of thing. And I remember I was so jealous of this other kid in the class because his art to me, his drawing to me, was so much better than mine. And I had always been kind of looked at as a good artist. So when I saw that, I was like, oh man, like this is not acceptable. I need to learn how to draw like him. So I remember actually asking him, like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do? And then I remember he and I kind of sat down one day and we were drawing a little bit together. And I think in that way it helped me to learn a little bit, and it also helped me to get over that comparison that I was having. Now, that was my earliest memory of it. I've had it lots of times since, nearly every day, I would say, as I'm looking at other art outside in my daily life, or if I'm on social media or whatever it may be. I'm always sort of having these thoughts of comparison coming up into my mind. And I think a lot of that just comes from this overall sense of judgment. I've talked about that in previous Dose of Dave episode, how we have this sort of innate kind of sense of judgment where we're trying to understand the world. And by understanding the world, we're, placing things within a hierarchy. And within that, it creates a judgment, or it creates a comparison. And sometimes, though, that can run amok, right? The mind is a good tool, but it's not necessarily a great master. So when you allow your mind to just sort of run amok, and you constantly are stuck in this mode of comparing yourself and the things that you do to other people, and seeing, like, because especially now with social media, I mean, you can find pretty much the best of every discipline that exists in the world. You can find a video of that. You can find somebody, doing that today, right now. So it's pretty much like, no matter what you'd ever want to do, somebody has done it, and somebody has, done it very well. Now, I shouldn't say that as a definitive statement, because anything's possible, right? So I'm sure that there's plenty of new things that are always going to be created, probably by you. But when it comes to this idea of comparison, we need to, sort of understand that there is a multitude of different perspectives. There's a multitude of different expressions of all of these things. So just because somebody is incredibly well versed at something, or just incredibly naturally talented at something, shouldn't take the joy of engaging in that experience away from you, right? So when it comes to me and my art, I don't really typically do a sketchbook. A lot of artists draw in a sketchbook, or paint in a sketchbook, or do whatever the F they want to do in a sketchbook. I don't really do the sketchbook thing. And I think I don't do the sketchbook thing because I have a tremendous amount of past anxiety and comparison trauma, I would say, when it is associated with a sketchbook. So whenever I would start to do a sketchbook, I was incredibly intimidated, for one, because I felt like I needed to fill the whole thing. And if it didn't fill the whole thing, that somehow like I was failing or something. Um, but then even as I was going through, I would like do a drawing and I wouldn't really like it as much. Then I do another drawing and I really like that one, but then I don't really like the previous one all that much. So maybe I'll tear that one off. And I would keep doing that where I would draw and draw and draw, but inevitably the majority of the drawings that I did, I would just be judging them and comparing them to what I saw other people doing in their sketchbooks and just going like, oh, what am I doing? Like, this is just so bad, so terrible. Like, why do I even want to keep this? So rip it out, throw it away. And, the more I did that, the more I realized I just thought, I don't really feel like sketching is right for me. Like I actually much prefer to just dive into an actual project and finish it to completion and then move on. I mean, yeah, I do some types of sketching, I would say, but it's for particular projects. It's not just like I'm sitting down and I'm just fucking around. I do like some kind of free drawing, here and there just for fun. But it's super rare and it's never a sketchbook. It's usually like just a plain piece of paper or like a, nicer piece of, drawing paper or something like that. And I have them all just smashed together in a folder somewhere. But, again, everybody's different. Everybody has a different perspective. And to me, like that is the core of where all this comparison lies. And because of that, that's where we can make changes, where we can go inside of what that means and truly kind of sit in it for a minute. People would say like step back, but honestly, I would say go inside because it's more of a feeling. It's more of I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was at the art supply store. And I was looking at some of the examples of certain things on the wall, and I've just gotten into this abstract art thing, and I remember I was super jazzed about my abstract art. I thought it was just super beautiful, and I'm very excited about getting it out there and seeing what other people think about it. And I saw some of this other stuff that was just like in the regular like Blick art store, and I was like, wow, that's really good. I was a little bit jealous in ways because their color was super smooth and I was having a little bit of issue with the color drawing the way that I wanted it to. And just like the level of the finish and everything like that, it was just super well done. And I was comparing pretty hardcore in that moment. And I felt like it took all of my passion, because remember, I was there to buy art supplies. So it like kind of took all my passion, all my joy, all my, drive to like buy these supplies and go home and do more painting. It took it away for a moment and I robbed myself of that joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. So when you get into those moments, because again, the mind is trained in ways like I don't want to say you've allowed it to happen, but in ways you have allowed it to happen because this world is driven by the mind. So to be more comfortable in this world, to exist more comfortably in your day-to-day life, I think in ways you have to allow your mind to sort of take over. But you can move past that. You don't have to just solely live your mind or live your life through a mind-only mindset. I mean, it's literally in the word mindset. You know what I mean? Like instead of like your core of your being, right? Or your unique perspective or whatever you would want to change that to. To me, you have to start thinking about incorporating your other parts, like your heart, your emotional center, and your gut, your intuitive center. So I feel like incorporating all of those aspects together in your decision making allows you to see truth, a more broad understanding of truth, not necessarily just your perspective, because everyone, again, has a different perspective. Think about the fact that, well, think about the idea that truth is at the center of the earth, and we are all just one point on the planet, one point around that truth, looking at that truth through a particular lens. I'm not going to have the same perspective of that than someone across the world, or even someone right next to me, because they're going to be looking at it from a different perspective. So in that mindset or being set, we have to rethink about how we approach these comparison moments, how we place ourselves within that equation. Because I think a lot of times what we're doing is we're putting ourselves down, right? We are putting someone else up and saying, they're better, I'm not. And because I'm not, I don't feel happy. That's a problem. And I think you can transmute that by stepping back, getting a broader perspective, seeing the fact that that person probably has maybe more experience, maybe a different education, maybe a different set of skills, maybe different, overall approach to doing that artwork versus someone like me I'm quite literally new at this type of artwork. I haven't quite done abstract in this way ever, so I'm brand new to it. I have not maybe practiced as much, have as much hours painting as that person. Not to mention the fact that when I really look at all the other people that are doing similar things, because I could go on Instagram, look up the hashtag abstract art and find thousands of people doing similar things that I'm doing. And the thing about it is we're all just a different perspective. Not one person is doing it exactly the way that I'm doing it. And they can't, everybody has a unique approach that no one can replicate. And that's what's so amazing about life and amazing about art, really. So when it comes to comparison and how we transmute that, it's about seeing that there's all different types of approaches, all different levels of knowledge, wisdom, all different amounts of time devoted to practice. Overall, there are infinite nuances to the experience of not only art, but of any other discipline or any other hobby or any other passion that we might share as a collective consciousness. So when it really comes down to it, when you really boil it down, there is no reason truly to get down on yourself by comparing yourself to someone else. They are their own perspective. You are your own sovereign perspective. There is equal value in what you do to what someone else in your field does. The only thing that separates that, the only reason why we compare in the first place is because we feel as though there's an inadequacy there. And because we feel that there's an inadequacy, it doesn't even necessarily need to be an inadequacy in art. It could be an inadequacy in something else, another aspect of your life. It manifests in this initial emotion of, I'm not good enough, of lack. So when we get into moments of comparison, the best thing that we can do, like anything else, is take a step back, take a breath, really, truly get inside of yourself for a moment remember that you are one of billions of people on this planet, and much more than that in the cosmos. And we are all driven. Oh, that's wonderful. It is Saturday morning morning-ish after all, people doing yard work. So, I forgot where I was going with that. Man, I had it. Shouldn't have stopped. Anyway, the thing about it is we need to just remember that we are all a unique voice that has value. I think that's a good way of putting it. So since we've got Mr. Loud Chainsaw outside, I think we're going to end for this edition of Dose of Dave. As always, guys, if you want to leave a comment, if you want to, hear me talk about a particular topic that you haven't heard me talk about yet, please, direct message me or comment on the video below. If you want to, you can find me on my social media and check me out on Dave's Towards Arts. My handles on everything: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so you can get more Dose of Dave content. And if you haven't checked out my Confederate monster book, which is a comic book that brings the world of Frankenstein into the Civil War, over on IndieGoGo, you can click on the link below to go check that out and back that campaign before it closes at the end of the month. I also have a couple of other things going on right now. I've got a new campaign over on Kickstarter with writer extraordinaire Terry Mayo called Buddy. It's a Milo and Otis style dog and cat story, but meets The Exorcist. So it's a very fun, family kind of friendly. I say kind of because there's some quasi-adult things in there, but very fun, very colorful, and just super interesting. So if you want to come over to Kickstarter as well and check that out, you can go over there and search for Buddy. All right, guys, that's it for this week of Dose of Dave. Catch me next week. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. It depends on what happens to me this week. It tends to be the theme so far, is whatever sticks out in my week is usually what I talk about. So, all right, guys, take care and hope you have a great one.